Welcome to my channel. I am Sugandha Singh Gupta. This is In the Earliest Cities. This is for class 6. Learning objectives. After this lesson, students will be able to understand the Harappa civilization, not only Harappian. That means Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Mehergarh, Lothal, Kanhu-daro, Chanhu-daro, uh, Kalibangan, etc. The story of Harappa. So, yesterday I am already told you that the where is Harappa located, and not only that, today's morning session I am already draw a map of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Mehergarh, and Lothal. So let's start about the story of Harappa. Very often old buildings have a story to tell. Of course, old buildings tell us some story about them. Nearly 150 years ago, when railway lines were being laid down for the first time in Punjab, engineers stumbled upon the sites of the Harappa in present-day Pakistan. To them, it seemed like a mound that was the rich sources of ready-made high quality bricks. So they carried off thousands of the bricks from the wall of the old buildings of the city to build railway lines. Many buildings were completely destroyed. Then about 80 years ago, archaeologists found the site and realized that this was one of the oldest cities in the subcontinent, as this was the first city to discover. All other sites from similar buildings were found to describe as Harappa. This city is developed about 4,700 years ago. What was the special about this city? Many of the city were divided into two or more parts. Usually these parts of west were smaller but higher. Archaeologists describe this is a citadel. Generally, this part of the east is larger but lower. This is called Lower Town. So we can divide it in Indus Valley Civilization or Harappa Civilization in two parts. That is Citadel and another is Lower Town. Very often walls of the baked brick were built around each part. So bricks were so well baked to they have lasted for thousands of years. The bricks were laid an interlocking pattern and that made the wall strong. In some cities, special buildings were constructed on the citadel. For example, in Mohenjo-daro, a very special tank, which archaeologists call the Great Bath, was built in this area. This was lined with the brick, coated with plaster, and made watertight with layer and natural tar. So that means they are very much developed to make the building or make the house, big building, the great bath. There were the steps leading down to the form of the two sides, while there were rooms on all sides. Water was probably brought from the water and drained out after use. Perhaps important people took a dip in the tank on special occasions. Other cities like Kalibangan and Lothal has fire altars where sacrifices many have been performed, and some cities of Mohenjo-daro Harappa and Lothal have elaborated storehouse. That means in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa and Lothal we can see the different storehouses. Generally, houses were either one or two stories high with rooms built around a courtyard. Most houses had separate bathing area and some had wells to supply water. Many of the cities had covered drain. Notice how carefully these were laid out in straight lines. Although you cannot see it, each drain had gently sloped to the water could flow through it. Very often, drains in the house were connected to those on the street and the smaller drains laid into the bigger ones. As the drains were covered in sections holes, they are provided to the interval to clean them. All three houses, drains and streets were probably planned to build at the same time. So, one thing that is clear that in Harappan civilization they are very developed in construction sites. A Harappan city was a very busy place. There were people who planned the constructions of the special building in the cities. These were probably the rules. It is likely to rules to send people to the distant land to the get metal, precious stones, and other things that they wanted. They may have kept most valuable objects such as ornament, gold, silver, and beautiful beds of for themselves. And there were scribes, people who knew how to write to help perhaps the seals and perhaps wrote the other material that have not survived. Besides, there were men and women craftspersons making all kinds of things, either in their one homes or special workshop. People were traveling to distant land or returning the raw materials, perhaps stories. Many terracotta toys have been founded and children must have played with this. Most of these things have been found in archaeologists are made of stone, cell, and metal, included copper, bronze, gold, and silver. Copper and bronze were used to make the tools, weapon ornaments, and vessels. Gold and silver were used to make ornaments of vessels. Cotton was probably grown in Mehergarh from about 7,000 years ago. Actual pieces of clothes were found attached to the lid of the silver vase and some copper object at Mohenjo-daro. Archaeologists have also found the spindle version made of terracotta and faience. These were used to spin trade. Many of these were produced were probably the work of specialists. A specialist is a person who is trained to do only one kind of the work, for example, cutting stone or polishing beads or carving seals. Look at the illustrations. You can see the illustration in NCERT book page number 28. Not everybody could have been the specialist. We do not know whether only men were specialists or only women are specialists. Perhaps some women and men have been the specialists. Raw materials are substances that are either found naturally or produced by the farmer or hunters. These are then proceeds to produce finished goods. For example, cotton produced by farmers is a raw material that may be processed to make clothes, while some of the raw material that is the Harappans used were available locally. Many items such as the copper, tin, gold, silver, and precious stones. The Harappans probably got the copper from present-day Rajasthan and even from Oman in West Asia. Tin, which was mixed with copper to produce bronze, many may be may have been brought from present day Afghanistan and Iran. Gold could have come all the way from present day Karnataka and precious stones from the present day Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. Food. While many people lived in the cities, others living in countryside grew crops, reared animals. These farmers and herders supply food craftspersons subscribe as scribes and rulers in the city. We know from remains the plants that the Harappans grew wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, etc. A new tool, that plough, was used to the dig of the earth for turning to the soil and planting seeds, while real plots, which were probably made of wood, have not survived. Toy models have been found. As this region does not receive heavy rainfall, some form of irrigation may have been used. This means that water is stored and supplied to the fields when the plants are growing. The Harappans reared cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. Water and the pastures were available around settlements. However, in the dry summer months, large herds of animals were probably taken to greater distance in search of grass and water. They also collected fruits like the pear, caught fish, and hunted wild animals like the antelope. antelope. The cities of Dholavira was located in Khadir Biad, also spelled as Bet, the Ran of Kutch, where was some fresh water and fertile soil. Unlike some of the other Harappan sites, which were divided into two parts, Dholavira was divided into three parts. Each part was surrounded with massive stone walls, with entrance through the gateway. There was also large open area and settlement where public ceremonies could be held. These cities of Lothal foot beside the tributary of the Sabarmati in Gujarat, close to the Gulf of Khambar. It was situated near areas where raw materials such as semi-precious stones were easily available. This was an important center to making objects out of the stone, shell, and metal. There was also storehouse in the city. Many shells and shellings were found in the storehouse. Around 3,900 years ago, we found the beginning of the major change. People stopped living in many of the cities, writing seals, and the wage Weightage were no longer used. Raw materials brought from the long distance become rare. In Mohenjo-daro, we found that the garbage filled up the streets and the drainage system broke down and new less impressive houses were built even over the street. Why did all this happen? This is very important question. We are not sure, but some scholars suggest that the river dried up. Others suggest that the deforestation. This could be happened because of the fuel was required to the baking bricks and for smelting copper ores. Besides, grazing by the large herds of cattle, sheep, or goats maybe destroy the green cover. In some areas of there were floods, but none of this reason can explain end of all the cities. Flooding or river drying up would have had effect in only some areas. It appears as if the rulers lost control. In any case, the effect of the changes are quite clear. Sites in Sindh and West Punjab, present in Pakistan, were abandoned, while many people moved into newer, smaller settlements in the east of the south. So that's all for now. Thank you so much. I am already posted the MCQ questions. Tomorrow I will post these MCQ questions in PowerPoint presentation. Of course, I will explain it all. So, till then, good night.